Morning everyone, Angus Campbell here, Thursday the 10th of October 2019. Okay, now the engine bottom end and cases are together at last. Then we can concentrate on preparing this for installation into the frame and rolling chassis over there. And as I said in the last video, the reason for that is that I would prefer to install this as light as possible and build it within the frame, which is entirely possible with these engines. So we've got quite a few bits and pieces to sort out on this before we attempt the install, so we'll get cracking on those today. So just to run through the bits and pieces prep work. So starting from the crank itself, then on the timing side we've got the crank timing pinion, but behind that we've got the shims which sit outside the journal on the A70 but inside a thrust washer. So let's have a look. There's the right hand main bearing on an A70, which is different to an A65. So there's the journal. So the two original shims that were on this motor, two 10 thou shims, sit on there, and then to take up the float we then have this big thrust washer which sits in the recess against the case, and then the thrust washer is held in place with the pinion gear. I've got to find the Woodruff key for that. As you can see, Woodruff key, pinion gear. Let's just put it on there for as an example. Then we've got washer, yep, which should go on there. And then we've got an all-in-one nut and worm drive for the oil pump, so very important. And that screws onto there. It's left-hand thread, so that will screw onto there and screw everything down against that that thrust washer. So we've got that to complete. We've got to clean up and just tidy up this. It's the chain and sprocket inner cover, which fills this gap here. And the reason this gap is here, or the reason you can remove this to create a gap here, is so that you can insert the mounting bolts for this lug when the engine is in the frame from this side and not on that side. And then once those are installed, you can fit this plate. So something like that. And then also we've got the actual plates themselves, which we actually will install loosely on this motor with all the bolts in place before we put it in the frame, because the way that you do this is you effectively use these. Well, let me show you. These fit on here like so on either side, and at the back you effectively use that mounting point as a, if you like, as a hinge. So that goes in first. And as you can see, as we said before, the originally the rear engine plates weren't chromed; they were dove grey, or on later models black. And due to this Pike's checkered history and semi-chopperization, These were chromed with a number of other parts, such as the swinging arm. All the other chrome was in a dreadful state and peeling, but these survived very well, mainly covered in a thick layer of oil. So I'm going to keep them chrome actually. Again, this might be picked out by some nitpickers when I eventually get the bike on the road, but to me it's just a bit of evidence of the history that it's gone through, so I'm going to keep it like that. And then the final thing to mention regarding bits and pieces that I've already done is that I have torqued up the crankcase bolts and nuts, and the 3 nuts in here, 1, 2 and 1 at the top there, 3, you can't get a socket in to tighten those up. So as I was using when I first installed these loosely, then put a box spanner in there, and then I think I've got it the wrong way around actually. No, I haven't. Box spanner in there, and used, that's it, a tight socket on the end of the on the other end of the box, and used the torque wrench to torque up to around about 17 or 18 pounds. I've done that with the front bolts. I have to be careful with these two, as these are UNC straight into the case and no nut either side, whereas the lower two down here, as you can see, have nuts. And not forgetting then the one in the middle where you have to use a short socket and a knuckle. But so due to the relatively light torque settings, that's not too bad. And then the final one that holds those two together is actually the can't see it here unless let's just see if we can just tilt it with one hand. There it is the bottom mounting point in the frame. Once tightened up, also puts a bit of pressure on keeping the cases together too. So all in all, we've got, including the top nut in the middle there, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we are. Okay, those are the bits and pieces. So first thing I'm going to do is clean up this plate and get a coating of paint on that. So I'll give it a light coat of it's not in bad nick, but I'll give it a light coat of primer, and then gloss black, and we'll get that drying. It's not a bad drying day today, but we'll get on with that first, and then we'll sort out the mounting bolts for the back end, and we'll sort out the crank pinion on this side as well. Right, first things first, that plate. So that's cleaned up pretty well with the wire wheel and emery. Just only surface rust. It was in pretty good nick because again this was covered with thick sludgy oil, which actually protected it all those years. So that's the original factory paint. But it was rusty, and I needed to tidy it up, so I took the decision to do that. Right, so we'll degrease that now, and then we'll hang it up and give it a coat of primer. Okay everyone, where are we up to? So the rear sprocket inner cover plate is outside in the sunshine, actually. Just see the side of the steps there being sprayed up. It's quite a mild day today with a bit of a breeze, so it's a great drying day. So that's outside with an initial coat of primer and then black, and we'll give it a couple more coats. And then whilst that's been drying in between coats, then I've replaced the camshaft pinion with its good Woodruff key. I've put together now the parts that I showed you earlier with respect to the thrust washer behind it, the two 10th shims, crankshaft pinion is slid on its Woodruff key, and those Woodruff keys both those Woodruff keys were in good condition. And we've got the timing idler pinion in now as well, and I think at the moment, subject to further checking, pretty much timed up. So we've got the timing marks there with the tooth into a slot, and on this side it's a little more difficult. You can see the punch mark there on the crankshaft pinion and the timing mark on the idler. They're not exactly going to line up, but you know, if you move that one tooth either way, it's miles away, so that has to be it. So we'll do some more checking on that before we finally put that together, because at the moment we're still waiting for new tab washers for both the camshaft pinion and ultimately what will be the final fixing nut on the end of the crankshaft here. What I'm going to put on the crankshaft next is firstly a spacing washer, and we know this is the right one because you'll probably see there it's got a bit of a pattern on it which looks almost like a squarish pattern, but if you look at the worm nut on the back end of that, there it is. That's the pattern. So we know that this rather thick washer is the correct washer, so that goes on there. It is actually very slightly chamfered on the other side, and that's when we tighten up, if it does butt up against the pinion sort of support face, if you like, then it will actually fit, as that's not squared off either. We just need to sort out a Woodruff. Actually, it's not a Woodruff key here, I'm talking absolute rubbish, because this now can screw on here and it's left on thread. Like so. It's a little bit tight there, so we'll just take that off and check it in a moment. But then what goes on here is a lock nut as well, but in between that is a tab washer which we haven't got, and this slot is to hold the tab washer on the inside. We haven't got a tab washer for that either, so I've got plenty of tab washers in stock, but not the right ones, so we'll have to source those. But obviously we don't need that yet to put the motor in the frame. Also, I've been sorting out the right sized bolts for the rear engine plates. These are the two bolts that mount the plates to the engine on the lug at the back here. All of these bolts are different sizes, so that's why you've got to be a little bit careful, but we've got all the correct sizes. And with respect to the other side of the engine plate, this is where the rear mudguard at the bottom end mounts to the frame too, so we've already got that mounted up on the bike. I'll just show you that. That's at the fixing point. It's not very clear actually. Just here. Need a bit of light, you can't really see it, but there's a fixing point there. So we'll take the chain guard off, as that's only just sitting in there at the moment. When we fit the bottom end of the motor, and then the bottom end of the engine plate is a shorter bolt, because going back to the frame, then that mounts up here. So you've got basically two mounting points at the back, one here. Actually, let's just see if I can gently take this off for you, because we need it off anyway. Gently. No, that's a little tight. I'll need 2 hands on that to do it properly so we don't scratch it. But anyway, making some good progress. Looks a bit of a mess around here because we're just sorting out all the little bits and pieces of parts. Oh, final thing as well is that for the sprocket, engine sprocket cover on the back here, this is mounted up with BA, little BA screws, and I found all those 3. They fit fine, and I've just put some new spring washers on those, so we're all ready to go there. So making some good progress. I'll get back to the sprocket cover, and once that's dry, we can tentatively think about mounting up the plates. In fact, we can do that now. So let's get on with that. Right, I think we're set up to go. So engine ready to lift in. As you can see, got the engine plates on the back. The chain guard's now off, so you get a better view of the rear mounting points for the top of the rear engine plate. And it's not just one huge bolt that goes all the way through there and out the other side through the other lug, but it's two separate bolts. So we've got the 2 bolts for the back plate. This long bolt here is the front bolt for the front mounting point. I was sent the wrong one, so we'll just put it in there temporarily for now. It's 5/16, I think, and it really needs to be 3/8 or even 7/16. It's the right length, but it's the wrong diameter. But we can use it for now anyway, just to get the engine in. So other than that, all we've got outside is the rear sprocket inner cover. It's had 3 coats of paint now, so that's just hardening up initially outside. We'll bring that back in, and we won't install that until probably tomorrow. We'll leave it overnight to harden. So I'll try and set you up so I can film this, but I haven't got a stand at the moment. I'll try and perch the camera somewhere so you can watch my deliberations. But the engine like that isn't too heavy, so I'm not expecting there to be too much swearing. Right everyone, you're perched on the stool nearby, and we'll see how we get on with this, as long as I don't get in the way too much. But anyway, let's give it a go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the engine in sideways first, and then tilt it and turn it round. Right, there we go, that wasn't too bad. So I had to change my strategy there, and in fact I had to get the back end in first because of the depth of the primary chain case around the clutch. But that was pretty straightforward, so I'll just now tidy it up, remove the rags, and just get one or two bolts in. it's not quite seated properly on the in between the underside lugs, which is why it's sitting a bit high at the minute. So we'll just try and gently move it a little. There we go. There we are. Right, I can get the front bolt in. And then we just need to see, let's have a look underneath and see why it's just sitting a little high. Oh, I can see why. I've actually accidentally left in the bottom rear engine plate bolt that mounts to the frame, so it can't quite sit in properly. So that should be easy to fix. Like so. Now I'm just thinking which side then we insert this lower mounting bolt at the back. Oh, and it's from this side. Loads of room. And in she goes. There we go, right out. And I'm just putting the nut now on that bolt. Little fiddly, but at least you can get it from two sides with being able to get through the sprocket and inspection plate as well from the primary chain case, because that side's not in yet. Other things to bear in mind as well as obviously is when we fit the primary chain case cover, etc., we'll need to take off the brake pedal and the left-hand footrest, but that's easy enough to do. Okay, final job is at the back here with the two top mounting bolts for the rear engine plates onto the frame lug, but these also hold in the rear mudguard bracket. And as you may have seen from the video when we fitted that, that was a little bit of a pig. And it's under a bit of tension all the time. See how far out they are. Quite a long way out actually. I'll need to have a little bit of a lever. Right, wooden lever, just to lever it back. Okay, that's going to work pretty well. One in. I'll just screw it in to make sure it goes all the way. Catches that mudguard mounting bracket. There we go, it's through. So we can put the nut and the washer on the other side. Washer on. Fiddly. Dropped it. Okay, she's on. One side done. Now the same the other side. Just having to think here. What I'm going to have to do in the future, which I can do just by taking out the bottom mounting bolts, is actually I'm going to have to lever the engine up to install the oil pipe unions. But that's not too big a job. We're only just putting this in loose now anyway. I hadn't thought about that. The engine sump plate is fine. That's actually been designed so it's well out of the way of the frame, and there's no frame member going across the underside of the motor anyway. But yeah, just on this side, with respect to the oil unions, there's not quite enough room to extract the mounting bolt. It's very close. It'll only need a little tiny bit, so I'm happy with that. Right, so I'll just get this bolt in on this side. which is actually quite a long way away. I think I can get a screwdriver in there. Can't quite do that one yet. I'm going to need to loosen off the bracket, the mudguard bracket from the mudguard itself, just to give me a bit of play. Because it is quite a long way away, but let's just see if I can have a go with a screwdriver to lever it into position. It might not hold, and if not, we'll just leave it for now. No, we're not going to be able to lever it. Let's do the job properly, and let's do that now. So we'll just need some spanners to undo the mounting bracket from the mudguard itself. So we're kneeling that too. Right, that's better. Bit awkward to get at because of the swinging arm. They're not tight. Here we go. Okay, I've just slackened it off a little and it's nearly there. Just a touch more to get a bit more play. Okay, nearly there. should be enough. Just about. Not quite there. Okay, she's in. A little tight, so I'm having to screw it in, but it's there. Washer on. Nuts on. Okay everyone, does that count as engine in? Anyway, made some good progress today. We'll end the episode there, and in the next episode we'll think about what we're going to attack next. As I've said yesterday, we won't be going to the top end and the barrels anytime soon, because we're waiting for liners for the barrels, and then we'll need to get those fitted to take them back to standard bore on the original barrels. But there's plenty we can do to begin planning the rest of the bottom end on both sides, both the timing case side and obviously this side on the primary case, and putting the gearbox in one lump, so that this now gives us a platform to build out quite quickly. I think the first thing we'll probably attempt next is to get the oil feed pipe union on the other side, and once that's on, I think we can then think about beginning to bolt up this engine in position. But there we are, she's in. Pleased with that and progress, and nice to get the rolling chassis back into play. Thanks very much for watching everybody, thanks for all your interest and any comments and any subscriptions, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much everybody, bye bye.